Genesis chapter 39. Now, Genesis, we looked at Genesis 37 last week, and now we're moving to Genesis 39. And if you, Genesis 38 is kind of an interlude, and it's not something I'm going to preach on a Sunday morning here. Okay, so chapter 39. We're going to move into chapter 39 and encourage you to join us. If you don't have a Bible in your hand, there are Bibles in the racks in front of you. Just pick one of those up. Genesis is right at the front of the book. Or you can get on your phone and go to Genesis. We're in chapter 39. I have 4 daughters. And they are the delight of my life. I love my 4 daughters. Edie and I have been so blessed to have 4 daughters. And now we have a granddaughter named Nora, and a granddaughter named Lucy, and a grandson named Harvey, and a granddaughter named Hayes, and another grandbaby coming before the end of the year. Yes! Isn't that great? Isn't that great? Y'all? Okay. All right. So, during that journey, in the blessings of parenthood especially, but it will repeat as our grandchildren get older, Edie and I enjoyed the blessings of dance recitals. Okay, maybe not enjoyed that blessing as much, but we went to dance recitals, and we went to graduations and recognitions at school and did all that, and it was great. Dance recitals are a little bit different. Now, I have 3 brothers, no sisters. I grew up in a home where if we had an event as boys, we had a soccer match or a football game or a baseball game. Those things didn't take 8 hours. Like dance recitals. And a dance recital is you go and you sit, and the first thing I learned to do is look in the program, where is my daughter going to be up on the platform? And you sit for 8 hours so that you can watch your daughter dance for 3 minutes. I'm not joking. Maybe as your daughters get older, or your child gets older, the sons and daughters, both of them are in dance recitals. You go. Maybe as they get older, they get in more than one. So you sit for 8 hours for 6 minutes, or maybe 9 minutes. But it is an unusual thing. To me, it was initially. But regardless, whatever event it is, as we sat there through recognitions at school or graduations or dance recitals, when you've been there. You're sitting there as a parent or a grandparent. Your child comes up in the dance recital, and they're there. And what do you do as a parent or a grandparent? Woo! Here I am. We wanted them to see us. And Edie was more reserved than I was, but it was being out loud. And honestly, you could see our daughters, especially as they were younger, they would look. They would turn their heads and they would look until they found us. It's a wonderful thing because our kids needed to know that we were near, that we were there, that we were watching, that we were near. I did the same thing when I was a kid and I was playing football or baseball or soccer or even running in a track. I would look to the stands to see where my mom or my dad were. So that's a natural thing, and it's a wonderful thing. But there was one particular dance recital where things were different. Instead of me being in the seat, in the audience, watching, being near, I actually went on stage with my daughter Maggie, who is here, and I danced with her. So it wasn't, I didn't wear a tutu that time. I will wear a tutu for my grandchildren anytime. Absolutely. But I got to be on the stage with my daughter Maggie, And it wasn't me being near, watching from afar. I was up there with her. So if she were nervous, she would hold my hand tighter. If she was uncertain about the next step, she would look to me to try to figure out what the next step is. And it wasn't me coaching her from a distance. It was me with her up there. And the truth is, she probably coached me more than I coached her. But, for some of us here today, you know that God is near. You know He is. You know that God is near. But what we learn today from Genesis 39 is more than God is near. It's that God is with us. Not just watching us, but holding our hands as we make our journey through this life. I wonder how many of us would experience our everyday differently, both the good stuff and the bad stuff, if we would let this truth sink into our soul that God is with us. Now, you know anything about the story of Joseph. We've already looked at chapter 37. Joseph, 17 years old. He's kind of a favorite of his father, Jacob. He has all these brothers. They're not digging the vibe of Joseph, and so they sell him into slavery. And the Ishmaelites and the Midianites, at the end of chapter 37, they carry Joseph to Egypt and they sell him to a guy named Potiphar. We're picking up that story in chapter 39. Just look in verses 1 and 2. Genesis 39, 1 and 2. Joseph had been taken down to Egypt, and Potiphar, an officer of Pharaoh, captain of the guard, an Egyptian, bought Joseph from the Ishmaelites who had taken him down there. The Lord was with Joseph, and he was successful, and he was in the house of his master, the Egyptian. The Lord was with Joseph. That really is the theme of chapter 39, and really the theme of Joseph's life. You might identify the theme of Joseph's life as persevering through adversity. You could say, well, there's the pit, and then there's prison, and now there's the palace. You could go back to the cartoon. It's not a cartoon. What do you call them? Animation. Thank you so much. You could go to the animated The Prince of Egypt and say, that's the theme. He became Prince of Egypt. No, none of that is the theme of Joseph. The theme of Joseph is that God had a purpose for Joseph, and that purpose took him through difficult days, but no matter where he went, God was with Joseph, and that's enough. That's enough. That's enough for you. That's enough for me. That God is with us. That's all we need. We don't need more than that. In fact, the theme that I want us to lean into today is that God's presence is our prosperity. It says that Joseph was a successful person. The reason for his success was that God was with him. But remember, that was a success as a slave. He was still living in bondage. It says that everything Joseph did prospered, but he prospered as a slave. It wasn't like he was living his own free life. He was still in bondage. And yet, he prospered. Can I tell you the one reason Joseph prospered? It's really what verses 1 through 6 is all about. And you go down to verse 21, you see it again. The reason Joseph prospered was because God was with him. God with us. Do you realize if you're a follower of Jesus, your whole life is built on this one premise? That through Jesus, God is with me and I am with him. Not as some dangerous, distant deity up in the clouds somewhere waiting to hammer down on me. But God is with me and I am with him, and we are in intimate friendship. That I know God not as an idea, but as my Father. And He is good, and He is faithful, and He is true, and He is right, and He is perfect, and He's my boss. But He is with me. That's what Jesus has provided. You go to Matthew chapter 1, the story of the angel talking about the birth of Jesus. And the angel said, Mary will give birth to a son, and you will call his name Emmanuel, which is translated, God with us. Jesus is Emmanuel. Jesus is God with us. That Jesus is God. He became flesh, and we can have intimate relationship with God because of Jesus. Jesus brought God to us. He is God with us. What separated us from God was our sin, and that sin, unless there's something done about it, we will never know God intimately. Unless there's something done about our sin, God won't be with us. Some of you are here today, and perhaps you say, well, I don't know God that way. And my prayer for you is that you might meet Jesus so that you can know God that way. Jesus is the bridge between a holy God and sinners like you and me. He who is God became flesh, lived a sinless, perfect life so that He could die on a cross for your sin and mine, so that through faith in Him, putting our life in the hands of Jesus, Emmanuel, God with us, we could be forgiven forever our sin and be brought into a friendship with God. Today, I want you to know God is not a religion that I follow. He's a relationship I have. I know we're in church and I'm a preacher dude and I'm professional religionist of sorts, but man, I got to tell you, religion is for the birds. We need a relationship with God, and that's what we try to do here at First Norwood. We try to help people understand that they can have a relationship, an intimate relationship. They can hold God's hand through faith in Jesus Christ. We become sons and daughters. In fact, Ephesians chapter 2, verse 18, it says that it is through Jesus, by one Holy Spirit, that we now have access to God. The picture there is an immediate intimacy with God. When you embrace Jesus as your Savior, He brings you into God's family. You know God as Father as well as King. And in that moment where you enter into God's family, He pours His Holy Spirit within you so that you live today in immediate intimacy with the God of creation. He's not a distant, dangerous deity out there. But He is God holding my hand. God is with us. And that's all we need. That is enough for us. It's hard to get there. I mean, we define prosperity in such different terms. Define prosperity, how many friends we have with us, or how much money we have in our IRA or our savings account or our bank account, or how many toys we have in our driveway or our hallways or our garage. We define prosperity in terms of finance and relationship and business and even academics. We talk about success in those terms, but the Bible uses different terms and different definition of prosperity. Prosperity in the terms of Scripture is God's presence, that you know Him, that you walk with Him, that He is yours and you are His. Today, if you're a follower of Jesus, God is with you. I mean, with you here. Now, He's not in this in heaven looking down on you as a spectator. He is with you. The real question you got to ask is, are you with Him? We'll get there in a minute, but are you with Him? He stretched His hand out to walk with you, but have you taken His hand and are you walking with Him? The reason God's presence is our prosperity, Scripture defines and describes it in different ways. In Psalm chapter 63, verse 3, the psalmist said, because your loving kindness, your steadfast love, your loyal love, Lord, because your loving kindness is better than life, I praise you. Where the very activity of God loving us is better than anything else life could ever give. Psalm chapter 16, verse 11. The psalmist says, Lord, you teach me the path of life. In your presence is the fullness of joy. At your right hand are pleasures forevermore. In the presence of God, there is the fullness of joy. There is direction in life. There are pleasures that are bigger than anything else that everything in life could ever give. When we walk in difficult days, God said to his people in Isaiah 41:10, he said, don't be afraid. Don't be dismayed, for I am with you. Yes, I am your God. I will help you. I will hold you up. I'll strengthen you with my righteous right hand. You walk through difficult days. Maybe it's the 23rd Psalm. Y'all know the 23rd Psalm. 23rd Psalm is not merely a funeral psalm. It is a living psalm. It's a psalm for you and for me, talking to us about the presence of God in our lives. The Lord who is with me. The Lord is my shepherd. I shall not. He makes me lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside still waters. He restores my soul. He leads me in the paths of righteousness for his name's sake. And yes, even when I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I fear no evil. For you are with me, your rod and your staff, they comfort me. You prepare a table before me in the presence of mine enemies. You anoint my head with oil, and my cup runs over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I'll dwell in the presence of the Lord forever. God's presence, His presence, His daily, wake me up in the morning, put me to bed at night presence. That's our prosperity. And that's what we learned from David. I mean, Joseph. We learn it from David too, but Joseph today. And Joseph teaches us that God is with us even in our setbacks. You know, we all face setbacks. We all have those downturns. We have those difficulties. And Joseph had them aplenty. It seems like every time Joseph turned around, he was facing another setback. He's 17 years old, and his brothers throw him in a pit to kill him, and then they decide, we're not going to kill him, we're going to sell him into slavery, make a little profit off of it. That's a setback. You think you have it tough with your spouses, or you have it tough with your parents, or you have it tough with your children, or you have it tough with your brothers and sisters. Or you have it tough at work. Listen, Joseph was sold into slavery. He's sold in Egypt to Potiphar. Now, Potiphar was a leader in Pharaoh's court. He was a ruler in Pharaoh's court and captain of the guard, so he was a warrior. And he purchased Joseph. Don't miss that. He bought Joseph as a slave. But the Lord, verse 2, the Lord was with Joseph. And the Lord gave Joseph opportunities to advance in Potiphar's home. Now, Potiphar recognized that the Lord was with Joseph, verses 4 and 5. Potiphar recognized that the Lord was with Joseph. And so Joseph received more authority in Potiphar's home. Now you might say, well, Joseph was, he was doing well. He was doing well as a slave. The dude was still a slave. He didn't stop becoming a slave. His whole time in Potiphar's home was one of forced subservience. But the Lord was with Joseph. Look at verse 6. I want you to just highlight here. Verse 6, it says, "Thus Potiphar left all that he had in Joseph's hand, and he did not know what he had except for the bread which he ate." You know what that means is that Joseph kept all the inventory and kept all the stores and purchased all the stuff. Potiphar didn't have any understanding of what was going on in his house except for the bread he held in his hand. Now the last sentence. "Now Joseph was handsome in form and appearance." Y'all like Marvel movies, and y'all have seen Marvel movies, right? You've seen the Marvel movies, and especially when Marvel was really good. The beginning, you saw these like Iron Man 1 and then 2 and 3, or you saw Avengers, and you had the end of the movie, right? And it stopped. The plot had stopped. But then if you held on at the end of the movie and you sat and you watched through the credits, and they included little trailers, so to speak, little teasers about the next movie that you could watch. Just little tidbits. That's what that last phrase is. It's a little tidbit. It's a little trailer. It says Joseph was a handsome dude. And that introduced another setback that Joseph was going to experience. That setback was with Potiphar's wife, who was inviting Joseph into behavior that was inconsistent with Joseph's character as a child of God. And he rejected the propositions that she made. You look at verse 20. Go skip on down to verse 20. What does verse 20 say? What did Potiphar do in response to Joseph's faithfulness to God? Threw him in prison. I would say that's another setback. But throughout every setback, the Lord was with Joseph, and that was enough. I know that you're facing different things and more than I could ever imagine in my life. I've been so graced by God, and as have you, but can I suggest that no matter what you're going through, no matter how bad it may appear, that if you are a son or a daughter of God through faith in Jesus Christ, if you belong to God, then He is with you, and that will get you through. And I'm not trying to make light of what your experience is. I'm not trying to make light of what your trouble is. I'm not trying to make light of what you're going through, or the struggles mentally, emotionally, relationally, financially. I'm not trying to make light of any of that. Here's what I do know. Your troubles may be big, but the love of the living God is bigger, and He's holding your hand. Will you hold His? God is with us in our setbacks. And God is with us in our faithfulness. And this is something we learn from Joseph. Every time Joseph had an opportunity to rebel against the will of God, he was persistent in his faithfulness to God. Now, this is what I mean by God is holding your hand, but are you holding his? God walks with you, he is with you, but are you with God? You're part of God's family, but are you following in his steps? Are you lovingly following God? Look at verse 9, Genesis 39:9. The very last phrase, how in the world can I commit this wickedness, Joseph says. How can I commit this wickedness and sin against God? The woman didn't even know which God he was talking about, but it didn't matter. Joseph was going to be faithful to the God who was walking with him. Joseph lived in intimacy with God. We know this here. We'll get to Genesis 41 later. Genesis 41, Pharaoh, the king of Egypt, said, surely Joseph had the Spirit of God within him. The only person in the Old Testament where it says they had the Spirit of God dwelling in them. And Joseph walked in intimacy with God. And in that intimacy, even when he was going to be faithful and he knew it was going to cost him something, he said, I'm going to be faithful anyway. If you like football, you watch football, like University of Tennessee winning last night. Just a little thing. But here's the thing about if you're a wide receiver. A wide receiver, you get a lot of accolades as a wide receiver, but the best wide receivers go carelessly and fearlessly over the middle knowing they're going to get hit. They're going to get hit hard. But they're willing to risk the pain. They're willing to take the hit to advance the team and catch the ball. Joseph said, I'm going to be faithful. I'm going across the middle and I know I'm going to get hit, but I'm going to take the hit because I can do nothing less than be faithful to the God who holds my hand. That's what it means to hold the hand of God. God is with you. Are you with him? Are you being obedient to him? And can I humbly suggest that the greater our intimacy with God, the more strength, courage, resilience, and faithfulness we have to say yes to God and no to sin. The greater our intimacy with God. And I'm not talking about your head knowledge about God. I have had seasons in my life, and from the time I was 11, I've always wanted to know more about God. And so I study things, and I memorize things, and I write things, and there's not been a time in my life where I haven't garnered or gained more information about God. But can I tell you that in my life, the greatest tragedies in my life, the greatest moments of disobedience to God happened when I looked like I knew a lot about God, but I wasn't walking intimately with him. It's not something to be toyed with. You wake up in the morning, I wake up in the morning, man, I want to walk intimately with God. God, you're holding my hand, I want to hold your hand, and I'm going to be faithful to you. I wake up in the morning, and we won't do it perfectly, but I'm going to give you all that I am. I'm going to hold your hand. That's what Jesus is talking about in John chapter 15, beginning of verse 9. Jesus said, as the Father has loved me, I have also loved you. Make your home in my love. You will make your home in my love if you obey my commandments. Just as I make my home in my Father's love and obey his commandments. Jesus said, these things I'm telling you so that your joy might be full, so that my joy might remain in you and your joy might be full and overflowing. Why? Because you are holding the hand of the living God who is with you and who loves you and who cares about you. And he is leading you in the path of truth, and he is strengthening you and your resolve in difficult days, and he is with you and you are with him. Can I look? Just don't play church games. And I'd just talk to you for a second. Don't just get the information and think that's all you need. It's not. You've got to hold God's hand as tightly as He's holding yours. And that means you've got to obey Him. You've got to do what He says. And you taste the fullness of His love when you live faithfully for Him. And when you're being faithful, the good news is He'll give you the strength to remain faithful. God's with us in our faithfulness. Notice what hasn't changed. Joseph has led a no good, horrible, no good, very bad days. I mean, he's still in the midst of the nasty kind of life. I mean, I wouldn't want Joseph's life. He's still walking it, but here's what we see. God is with him. And the last thing, God is with us and faithful to us. Just finish it off like this. Look at verse 21. So Joseph is going to prison. He's there, all right? Again, downturn. Joseph is in prison, and in verse 21, Moses writes, he says, "But the Lord was with Joseph and showed him mercy and gave him favor in the sight of the keeper of the prison." God was with Joseph in the prison. Again, being a follower of Jesus doesn't mean that you're going to have all lollipops and unicorns and good vibes. Being a follower of Jesus means that we will walk through difficult days and experience hard things. But our prosperity is not in our comfort. Our prosperity is in the presence of God in our lives, even in our discomfort. And so Joseph is in prison, and the Lord is with him. The next phrase, and showed him mercy. Now, if I could just geek out for a second, mercy there is a Hebrew term that's probably the richest, deepest, most theologically hefty Hebrew term in the Old Testament. And you've heard me say it before because I enjoy saying it, but it's important for you to hear it. It's hesed. Throughout the Old Testament, that term, hesed, paints the picture of God's loyal love, that it's His never failing, always abounding, always faithful love. And what God is saying to Joseph is, Joseph is holding God's hand and God is holding Joseph's hand. He's saying, look, I am rolling out my love for you and I am walking with you. As they open the prison doors, I'm going through the prison doors with you. You are not alone. I am with you. Not just intellectually, but emotionally and spiritually, I am with you. And friends, when God is with us, that's enough. I wonder how many of us understand that no matter what we're going through, as sons and daughters of God, we're holding His hand, He's holding our hand, and He is walking with us through the valley of the shadow of death so that we fear no evil. No matter what we're going through, that God in His protective care, His rod and His staff, they protect and care for us. That even when enemies are encroaching on us and even when circumstances stink, God says, you just sit down at that table right here. I'm going to build you a feast and I will stand guard over the tent so no marauders will be able to get you. God says, I am with you every step of the way, and I'm going to pour my Spirit on you so that you are strengthened and encouraged, and I'm going to fill your cup to overflowing, and your circumstances may not change, but you will be changed in your circumstances because you are holding my hand, and I am holding your hand, and God is faithful. Today, I know you may be going through it. It may be tough, or you may be filled with fear, uncertainty, anxiety. I get it. I do. I've been there and will be there again. But today, just stop wrangling internally or externally, trying to get out of the prison, and just take hold of the hand of the one who loves you the best, and be satisfied, fulfilled in His embrace. Because of Jesus, Emmanuel, God with us, we can live in intimacy with God and God with us. And even in our setbacks, we can hear God say, "Fear not, I'm with you. Don't be dismayed. Don't be afraid. For I am your God. I will strengthen you. I will help you. Yes, I will hold you up by my righteous right hand." Because of Jesus, Emmanuel, God with us, we can live in intimacy with God and God with us. In our faithfulness, we hear Him say, "As the Father has loved me, I also have loved you. Abide in my love. If you keep my commandments, you will abide in my love, just as I've kept my Father's commandments and abide in His love." I'm telling you this so that you might have share in my joy, and your joy might be overflowing. Because of Jesus, Emmanuel, God with us, we can have intimacy with God and God with us. And even in the darkness of our prison, we can say, "Lord, you show me the path that leads to life." In your presence is the fullness of joy. And at your right hand are pleasures forevermore. God's presence is our prosperity. Let's bow our heads. Today, can I invite you to take hold of God's hand today? Can I invite you to allow the Spirit of God to put a megaphone of God's love song to your soul? That you would soak in this truth. That God is with me. And in that wonderful truth, by God's presence I am strengthened. By God's presence I find peace. In God's presence I have fullness of joy. In God's presence I am protected. In God's presence anxiety must flee. In God's presence I am safe. Even in bad circumstances. In God's presence, I have direction. It all begins through Jesus. Now, Father, I pray that you would speak to our hearts the truth of your love, and that you would pierce our hearts in those places in our lives where perhaps we're not holding onto your hand. We're walking in disobedience. We're not being faithful. God, I pray that you would pierce our hearts with our rebellion and draw us intimately back to yourself. Now, Father, I pray for any here today who are not yet part of your family. I pray that you would give them a yearning to know how to be able to say, God is with me, not just watching me. Not just near me, but God is with me. I pray that you would lead them to see Jesus. It's the only one who can provide forgiveness for sin and intimacy with you. And Father, I pray for all who are here today hurting, struggling, overwhelmed by life and circumstance. I pray that you would soak their soul with the truth of your presence, and that you would unveil their eyes to see the joy that your presence provides, even in the prison in which they live.